I'll start off by saying this. I think one of the biggest mistakes we made at the beginning of this process was assuming that an acquisition would just naturally blend into your existing structure and into your existing communications plan. Like the reality is that that won't happen naturally, right? So you needed intentional focus.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt. Doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic. I love it. I love it.
I don't know.
It's good. It's good. Hey.
Hey.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Are you a human being?
When I was in year of high school, I was in chemistry class. Mr. Curson, that was the name of my teacher, and he said something. I don't know if he gave us our homework assignment for the week or what. He said something, and this girl in the class goes, "Are you for real?" And he goes, for those not watching on YouTube, I'm checking each pulse.
Pulse check.
For real. And haven't thought about that since then until just now. So yes, I think now that I've checked my pulses, I can confirm I am in fact a human being. What about you?
Okay. Yes, 100%. I am a human being. So we've got that established.
Yes.
Part of the reason I'm asking is because in our industry, we are humans. Maybe this is a tagline. We are humans serving humans. And our guest today, Jake McCoy, talks a lot about human-led experiences. And, this is something I really find fascinating, especially in this world of ChatGPT and AI and all the machines that can be taking over. But at the end of the day, what we really do is we connect human beings. And I love the way that he talks about it, not only for what he does in the C-suite, but globally and at scale for RWS.
Yeah. One of the things that reminded me of was, I've heard a number of times of people saying it doesn't matter if your business is B2B or B2C, we are all H to H. So whether you're business to business or consumer to consumer, we are all humans serving humans, right? And
yes.
And we're all attraction pros too. But in this case, the human element of the experience doesn't sound like it would be a differentiator on the surface. But Jake builds the case for how it is, and that's what makes them different from other similar sources of or similar types of providers. But that brings me to the next point: is talks about the single source of truth, and this guy is an operator at heart, and I think my gears were turning and kind of nerd sense, kind of geeking out a little bit of the way that RWS has been able to scale and grow as well as acquire new companies have been largely by developing that single source of truth that everyone is held accountable towards that area, that sense of knowledge and things like that. And just hearing him talk about it, like I said, I nerded out on just the way he described it.
Yeah. Well, and it goes to clear communication and a process for clear communication throughout the entire organization. So from a training nerd perspective, I love that as well. But the other thing, one of the other things that he talked about was the Ferrari analogy, and I'm not sure we should give too much away except to kind of tease it and just say it's a pretty cool analogy when you think about what he does currently as the interim CEO, but also what he has done as the COO and the breadth of influence he's had on the company over the years.
Yeah, I am definitely going to be thinking about that analogy for quite a bit. So, should we open the curtain and turn on the spotlight and put on our fur character suit and get to this interview with Jake McCoy?
Yes, let's do it. Hey Jake, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. It is great to have you here. I'm wondering if we can kind of hear a little bit about your background and your career to this point.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to share with you guys. Bit of a crazy journey for me. I studied at Creighton University. I got my BFA in technical theater production. I spent a lot of time while I was in university working professionally throughout Nebraska, throughout Omaha. Was doing some work for Opera Omaha, Nebraska Shakespeare. But during my junior year in college, I joined the Broadway Dreams Foundation as director of production. I was touring across the United States while I was still in university, which was a fun and exciting adventure for me. But I became the first person at Creighton to graduate early with a BFA, which was pretty incredible. I moved to New York City right away and continued building my career in live entertainment, including moving straight into some work professionally with Mariah Carey. And it was actually backstage during that time that I met Ryan Stana, the founder and executive chairman of RWS. And really, the rest is kind of history. So that moment for me really was a complete game changer. And as of today, I've got more than 15 years experience across production, operations, business strategy, live entertainment, including the lead producer for the Girls Getaway Cruise with Oprah Winfrey. But over the years, I've really worked very hard to work with a variety of different brands, activations, experiences, including Disney, Holland America Line, doing a lot of work with Merlin Entertainment right now across all of the Legoland properties globally. But I am a true believer that you really have to love what you do in this industry. I have always had a genuine passion for this industry. And the power of live experiences, I believe, really brings people together in a way that cannot be done in any other environment.
Absolutely. That's awesome and well said. Jake, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about that moment backstage working with Mariah Carey, and you said that was where you met Ryan. Can you enlighten us? Tell us the story about that.
Yeah, so it was pretty crazy because through my work at Broadway Dreams, actually, we I had the benefit of being able to work with a bunch of different Broadway directors and producers and professionals. And there was someone who had actually called me on Thanksgiving Day. I was sitting at my family's house and said, "Hey, we just got a call from Debbie Allen. We want to get you involved in this project. What do you think?" So it was an amazing experience for me. It was Mariah's first All I Want for Christmas Is You show at the Beacon Theater, which is an incredible venue, incredible world-class production team. But I had heard of Ryan because I had a couple friends who were working for RWS at that point, and they said, you should come check this out. So I actually made a bit of a strategic decision there. They gave us two comp tickets for the entire run of the event. And I took my two comp tickets and I gave them both to Ryan and one of his friends to come. And I was touring him around backstage. I think it might have actually been the night that Lady Gaga was there. And I was showing him, the amazing spectacular that was that show. And we were having a bit of a chat. And at that point, he had just signed his first cruise line contract, which for me was sort of an interesting appeal because everything that I knew about RWS up until that point in time, that was a long time ago, was that we were heavily involved in the theme parks and live events sector. But there was something about this idea of getting in early at kind of ground level when we were just starting in a new market sector that was really inspiring and exciting for me. I believed in Ryan's vision. And I believe that I really had something to offer to this business at that point in time. And the rest was history after there. I've worked in almost every department at RWS, whether it's land production, sea production. I've done a bit of work in our design production team, admin, back office. It's been a wild ride.
That's awesome. I just think it's probably interesting to point out that of the two people you were talking about, Mariah Carey and Ryan, that it was more important that you met Ryan. right? In that interaction, which is great. I think Ryan's a wonderful human being. But just for people who may not be as familiar with what RWS does, can you give people kind of a little rundown of some of the scope of what RWS is involved in?
Yes. So RWS Global is a world leader in creating live moments across entertainment and sports. So from Broadway style shows to opening ceremonies, summer entertainment, this can be, the from big and small. So this can be small family-owned theme parks. We are engaging millions of people every single day, delivering these end-to-end solutions. But at the end of the day, for me, this is really what it is all about, is we create human-led experiences powered by exceptional human talent. And I think really that human-led is such an important distinction, especially in today's day and age with, AI coming very heavily into the picture after the ChatGPT moment. For us, we are a human business. When you hire RWS, you're hiring a world-class team. And we then have these really incredible human beings who are out delivering these experiences around the world. And that is what sets RWS apart.
I'm curious if we could dive a little bit more into that and what sets you apart from curious as far as what is the opposite of a human-led experience and the
Yeah.
ways to differentiate. Yeah.
I would say one differentiator for us is the fact that we rely very heavily on well, I mean, we're a service business, right? So for us, like the core of this is about relationships. It's a big part of what the entertainment industry is. But a genuine USP for RWS is really the fact that there are plenty of businesses out there who can deliver creative to an exceptionally high level. There are also plenty of businesses who run a strong operation. We have been able to marry these two worlds together, servicing a very large set of market sectors. So the fact that we are on so many cruise ships, 50 plus cruise ships, that's more than any cruise line is operating right now, 135 plus theme parks. So the scale is quite incredible. But at the end of the day, for me, it is really this beautiful marriage between creative excellence and operational excellence coming together with a team of people who are really setting the standard for what's going on out in the world today.
So, Jake, you've just talked about the scale, which is incredibly impressive. And in your previous answer, you said that you're affecting millions of people, which again is amazing to think about all the human-centered and human-led experiences that you are leading, especially in this AI world. I'm curious, as the interim CEO, what kind of weight does that put on your shoulders to ensure that this continues and that scale can continue to grow?
Yeah. Everything I'm doing right now has a focus on the future. It is about setting this business up for long-term success and scalability. So I spend a lot of my time making sure that the operation is clean and tight and that we are building the foundation to allow RWS Global to continue on indefinitely, right? This isn't about any one single person or a group of people. It is about making sure that we have set up a system that allows RWS to be able to function no matter what our size is. I mean, it's great the scale that we've achieved in such a short amount of time, but there's no reason why we're gonna stop growing, right? So we need to make sure that we have a strong focus on our people, that we have a strong focus on our clients, and we have a strong focus on the talent who is out delivering these experiences every single day. So that foundational kind of building is really, really important to me and is kind of at the core of what I'm doing every day when I'm getting up and coming to work.
I'm curious if we can talk more about that scalability piece. And prior to being interim CEO, you were in the COO role. And in that role is when you built the operating infrastructure that has allowed for the company to scale. And you've been with the company for 12 years. You've been through a lot of probably iterations and a lot of evolution and acquisitions across that time as well. And I'm curious if you can tell us kind of what that was like in the COO role that you're able to continue to be able to build upon, to be able to amplify from the company's scalability.
Yeah. So my focus every day is on that operational excellence across the entire globe. You've got to optimize the process. We've got to we Cutting edge technology has been an important thing for us, not just in what the guest sees out there, the guest or the fan sees out there every day, but also making sure that our teams has access to the right tools. We want flawless execution. But really, the metaphor that I use all the time, actually, with my teams, is I say RWS Global looks like a Ferrari on the outside. My job is to make sure that it is built like a Ferrari on the inside. Again, so many companies will kind of focus in one area, but it is really making sure you've got the strong operations, you have the strong creative excellence. Integration was a major part of that in our acquisition journey. Properly integrating companies into one, that requires really clear communication, meticulous planning, and understanding of culture. I think that is so important. I decided a number of years ago when we had made our acquisition out here in the UK to come out here and really to live and breathe this every single day. And I've actually never left. So I was in New York City for a long time, but I've now relocated permanently out into the UK 4 years ago. And it was really important for me that when I arrived here, the number one thing that we needed to do was we needed to understand the business that we acquired, understand the culture, who the people are, how they operate. That is really core to having success in those types of acquisitions. So you need a clear vision. You need an understanding that, we came into this thinking RWS was going to be kind of, a parent brand, and then we had these different acquisitions underneath us. And very quickly we realized that wasn't the way to leverage our global scale. We needed to really focus on, okay, what are the services that RWS operates in? And then really building up strong global teams in each one of those market sectors: land production, sea production, sports production, destination design, merchandise, casting. Those are the areas that we need to make sure we are built in from a global standpoint, regardless of what HQ or office you sit in, or regardless of which acquisition you came under. The idea is that everybody is one team at RWS, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We are leading with those market sectors front in mind.
So, Jake, I'm curious, how do you balance the one team aspect with all of the different verticals that you just mentioned, sports and theme parks and cruises and merchandise and destinations, because they've all got different sort of sub objectives underneath the one umbrella of these great experiences. So, maybe even taking, kind of those big buckets of sports and theme parks and cruises. From the outside, it might look very similar, but I'm guessing from the inside, like you say, the inside of that Ferrari, like the cylinders look very different from the exhaust. So I guess kind of balancing all of that and making sure that we're delivering operational and creative excellence in very different verticals.
Yeah. So I think most importantly, we apply the same principle to everything that we're doing, right? Raise your experience for our guests, for our team, for our clients, but more importantly than that, on the similarities and differences with the markets, is no matter what, we've found that everything that we do, regardless of where it's sitting, regardless if it goes out to a ship or a theme park, or if it's at a massive sporting event, everything we do tells a story. And that is so important in what you're delivering for an exceptional guest or fan experience. That story ultimately drives engagement, and engagement drives ROI for the clients. And what we found over time is that where that maybe would have been kind of a nice to have in some areas, it is no longer a nice to have. It is a requirement for the job. If you are not if you are not telling a compelling story that has strong engagement and driving a strong ROI, then you might not be invited back for the next project. Like, that is really part of our special sauce here. And we make sure that we're incorporating a story in everything we do. That means a story needs to be told if it's a design deliverable. That means it's a story if we are doing, a precinct for a sports activation in a local city. It needs to go forward in everything that you do because again, that is what is going to connect with that guest or fan who is sitting there because what we've seen is there's a bit of a shift in that individuals no longer want to sit in a seat and have entertainment happen at them. They want to be part of the experience, and the way to get them involved in that experience is to have them bought into the story that you are telling.
I'm curious if you can share a few examples of that reversal of the trend, whether it's in theme parks and cruise or in sports of that shift from passive to active participation.
Yeah, I'll use cruise ships as an example of this. I think this is a spot where it has really kind of taken off. So traditionally in cruise ships, and this is probably an area where it took a long time for entertainment to really shift out on cruise ships. A lot of that came from the fact that we were pushing the boundaries and innovation and technology and starting to get media walls and look at the actual way those theaters were designed. But a more relevant example to this is like a guest used to go in to the theater, which is typically at the front of the ship, and they'd sit there and they'd watch a show, and it was, a lot of big spectacle, but ultimately they were sitting in the show, performers are up on stage, and it's happening. It's a 35-minute show. They get up, they leave their seats. Now, that type of entertainment is still happening on board every day, right? We have found a way to really innovate those shows and make them exciting and make the guests connect with them. But just as much, what we're seeing is an expansion of entertainment beyond the forward theaters. So entertainment when you go on a cruise ship nowadays isn't just existing in that theater, right? There's all of these lounges in all of these different areas all across the ship that are being activated and brought alive. And there's a couple different ways we do that. One of them that we found really great success with is brand partnerships, right? So if you are bringing a brand that people know and recognize out into a lounge, if that is a magazine brand or something, like Billboard or Rolling Stones or Lincoln Center or all of these different, brands that are household names, that brings the lounge and the venue alive in an entirely different way than maybe just a custom IP show that we've built for that cruise line. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to just change the format entirely. So one of the things we've done is we've got a couple instances of these sort of immersive speakeasy lounges where the guests get an invitation slid underneath their door the night before the show. There's a secret password to be able to get into the room. They say the password, they come on in, and it is a complete transformation of the environment, right? We have turned that lounge into something entirely different than they used to seeing. The performers are the heartbeat of that experience, right? They're bringing it to life, but you've also got these immersive food and beverage offerings that are coming. We've got, the bar staffed in themed outfits that match the costumes that the cast are wearing. So you really figure out a way to be able to activate the entire environment in a way that feels kind of like a surprise and delight moment for the guest rather than sitting there and experiencing entertainment in the same way that they always have.
So Jake, I'm want to go back to the some of the acquisitions that you talked about earlier, and you talked about how clear communication was such an important part of that process. And I'm wondering if we can dive a little deeper into that because, with every organization that I work with, every individual team and company, they all talk about we need to improve communication. So taking all these different entities and bringing them together, I think it's one thing. And I love your analogy about the Ferrari because clear communication, we can all say it, right? But then what does that actually look like and what does that sound like on the inside? So I'm curious if you can give us a little bit more insight into what that clear communication looks like and how that plays out in those acquisitions.
Yeah, I think I'll start off by saying this. I think one of the biggest mistakes we made at the beginning of this process was assuming that an acquisition would just naturally blend into your existing structure and into your existing communications plan. Like the reality is that that won't happen naturally, right? So you needed intentional focus in this area. So the first thing was getting the structure right and making sure that we actually put everything in a structure that made sense, right? If you're bringing in an acquisition and you have people who are working in particularly central service functions, right? So, legal, finance, procurement, travel, all of those areas, we wanted to make sure that those weren't living and tied to the market sector and that those were built out as global, robust functions around the world. But on the communications front, I have to kind of speak to technology in this instance because I think I've spoken to some technology leaders in very, very large organizations, and they've actually told me they're jealous of the approach that we've taken because I've taken a very hard line with this, which is that in order to be able to allow the teams on the grounds to successfully operate, you need to streamline it right away from day one. And we had you need to make sure that everybody can find each other in the directory and be on a global HR system and start to see each other's faces and understand how this is all working. We some very large companies who are known as global companies still have individual systems for every single region. I broke that barrier down right away and said every single piece of content that we produce needs to go in one repository. Every single person needs to be in the same Microsoft tenancy. Every single person needs to be in the same HR system. We are all using the same project management tool. Like all of those things were really, they sound like little things, but they're really crucial steps to be able to have success so that the team can talk to each other on day one. Because if you've just done all of those org changes, but you've not made it so the people over here can have a meeting with the people over here. I mean, one of the biggest learnings that we had when we didn't do this in one of our first acquisitions, you couldn't even book a meeting with someone because you didn't know whether or not they were available on their calendar. So like you need to make sure that you've opened up the lines of communication in safe and efficient ways to be able to say we are one team and you're putting your money where your mouth is because they feel like that. They are using the same tools, they can communicate in the same ways. And then once you've got the structure right, you've got the technology and the platforms and the channels correctly, then that's where you start to come in with process and say, okay, great, we've got this suite of tools, but which one do you use for what? So we have a very simple, kind of easy to read communication chart that says like, when do we use email? When do we use Teams? When do we use all of these different tools? All of those things are incredibly important. But at the end of the day, I go back to this. We are delivering human-led experiences with exceptional talent. And in order to be able to do that, you need to create an environment where these people can be humans every single day. That's what's so important to me is that we spend time with the clients, we spend time on the projects, and we spend time really focusing on what that guest and fan experience is, because that is really what matters at the end of the day.
I've got to imagine that streamlining all of these channels of communications is not without challenges, and especially a company that is being acquired and is now told they need to change what am I using Slack for? What am I using email for? What Microsoft program am I using XYZ? And I'm wondering if you're able to shed a little light on just challenges in whether it's scaling acquisitions or kind of the blend of the two.
I think blend of the two is fair, but at the end of the day, like at the heart of all of that is culture. So if it doesn't matter if you have this really robust operational strategy, if you are not living and breathing that every day in your culture, then you're kind of missing a trick there. So just as important as it was to develop those tools, it was also really important that we found ways for people to start to connect with each other. So we have a couple examples of that. We do um, a quarterly initiative that's called Global Connect, where we quite literally put out a an episode, if you will, and give everybody real, true insights into what's going on from the business, being able to hear directly from our C-suite. That happens quarterly, but then on a weekly basis, we put out a television show, RWS TV, and that is where you get the pulse for the business. We did away with company-wide staff meetings because it was impossible. There's no way you can have a meeting that exists in New York and Shanghai and Riyadh and Australia and the UK all at the same time. There's just not, that's not the way time zones work. So we found big success in doing a weekly television show, which has been a big hit with the teams. But you've got to find a way to be able to also scale your culture. It's not enough, in my opinion, to put the core values on the wall. We do that. We do have the core values on all the walls as a reminder to everybody as to what is important to us in this business. But you've got to live it. You've got to get that out there and meet people. We encourage opportunities for individuals to travel between the different HQs. It's always a big moment every year when we get to the holiday parties where our leadership team splits out and goes out and gets to represent each HQ around the holiday season. So again, a focus on the people, that is really what it's all about. And that encourages everybody to feel like that we are unified in our mission.
So, Jake, I love the idea of the TV show and all of the things that you've talked about with regards to culture. I'm curious if someone is listening and they're saying, you know what, I don't have a global organization. I don't have, places in Shanghai and London and New York. What are some of maybe the core tenets that you kind of believe in and you work with every day that even someone with a small family entertainment center could apply to impact positively their culture and their communication?
Yeah, sure. I think one foundational principle, doesn't matter how big you are, it doesn't matter if you're a 5-person team or a 500-person team, is uh, single source of truth. So whatever you're doing, making sure that your team is clear on what the source of truth is. And this isn't even just a systems conversation, but it is, right? Like if you are deploying policies, if you are putting out operational procedures, if you are doing things that are maybe more on the human or the culture side, like what is it that they go to and we know this is where I can go and understand what's going on. And all 5 people on my team or all 500 people on my team are looking at the same thing and we're believing that this is kind of what we need to go to for this. So I think that is really important. Having a clear North Star is probably the number one most important thing that you can be doing. And that doesn't matter if you're a 1-person company, you need to be doing that, which is that you need to understand where are you going with your business and make sure that you have a plan on how to get there because having the North Star is great. But if you don't have a plan, and we are, very meticulous about this at RWS, the entire year is planned out ahead of time, and we are constantly driving that time and action plan throughout the year. Even the most seasoned executives still need to make sure that you are focusing on actually delivering on your goals and what you're planning to do. So having the single source of truth, a clear North Star, and then an understanding of what is the cadence that your business is going to operate in, right? I gave a bunch of different examples here. We were talking about things that happen quarterly or things that happen weekly. What is it that you are doing and you are staying consistent with year on year, most importantly, to make people understand, like, I know what it is to work at this business, right? I understand what the expectation is. What you don't want to do is start to confuse people and make it seem like, well, last year we did this and now we don't do this anymore. And are we going to this? Like, if you know, like, this is the rhythm of this business, then people can more easily buy into that because they understand what the expectation is and how you operate. And also, how do they get news? How can they escalate things? Who do they go to? All of those things are really, really important. But you are creating a culture in which you're building a stable business, right? It's not just about scale. Everybody wants to grow their business, great, but you need to be able to scale responsibly, and part of the way that you do that is to provide stability.
Hmm.
I might be getting a little too into the weeds with this question here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. what is a single source of truth? What does that look like? Is that an SOP? Is that a web page everyone needs to bookmark in their browser? What specifically is that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm glad you asked it, Josh. It's an area I'm actually quite passionate in. So, single source of truth for us is making sure that all of your content is stored in the same location. Any one project for us, especially for projects of this scale, could have tens of thousands of pieces of documentation with it. And it's about making sure that we understand this is the most accurate production schedule, this is the most relevant design file that we are looking at. And we know exactly how to be able to access those things and where we can find them. So we utilize a storage system called Box. And for us, that was really key when we were going on our journey with all those acquisitions. Everybody needed to get all of their content into Box. So it can't be this office uses SharePoint and these guys use Dropbox and these guys use this. Let's get everything all together. And then we know that we can very easily put together project hubs and at ways for both our teams and our clients to be able to access the things that they need to access. This industry moves way too fast to be worrying about, is this the most recent version? And can you resend me this? And we are set up in a way that we need to be sleek, we need to be efficient, and we need to be focusing on what matters, not about making sure that we're looking at the right document.
So, Jake, you've been talking a lot about passion, and you said you're passionate about the single source of truth, and you've been also been speaking passionately about all the things that you get to do. So, I absolutely appreciate that. But I also want to go back to when you first started in the industry of live entertainment, and you talked about you really have to love what you do. So, I'm curious, what was that initial passion that got you going that you're now still, using all these years later?
Yeah, very good question. So for me, I was always interested in both the creative and the production side simultaneously. Long before I had anything to do with theater, I was a creative at heart, right? I had my own photography business. I was very heavily involved in graphic design. And for me, I enjoyed when I was working on those projects to be able to do kind of both sides of it. What was really exciting was when I started to get these worlds brought together, when actually my first introduction to the world of theater, if you will, even long before university, was I got brought in to work on a graphic design project for a theater group. And it was kind of bringing together these two worlds that I realized when I was sitting there and I was, going over the things for the show posters, essentially what I was working on. And I was sitting in there in tech rehearsal and I was looking around and I was like, wow, what a cool thing, because it was at that moment really, really clicked for me that theater wasn't just about acting on stage. That was never something for me that I was passionate about. I didn't believe that I wanted to be an actor, be a performer, but I realized that there was this kind of creative entry point into the world of theater. I was looking at people who are working on lighting design and sound design and video design and all of these things. And that was intriguing to me. And I realized that there are ways, and I think it's really important, particularly right now for young people to understand as well, that it's not just about, oh, you can be an actor and go be on Broadway, or you need to be an actor and go into Hollywood. There are thousands and thousands of different positions that are in this industry that are in so many different disciplines, right? Whether you're on the business side or you're on the creative side, you're on the production side, you're on the technical side. There are a million different ways to get involved here. And that is really important when I'm speaking to groups of students or I'm speaking to young talent. It is getting people to understand that there's something for everybody in this industry. And it is especially right now in this day and age an exciting industry to get involved in because there's so many different opportunities and there's so many areas around the world right now where we are seeing clients make very large investments in new properties and new projects and new infrastructure. And at the end of the day, what's going to need to happen is they're going to need content, right? And it's on people like us to come into those environments and to create a story and deliver an experience that is reliable and scalable and going to ultimately deliver on that ROI for them.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things about our industry is, like you said, there's something for everybody, and we need everybody in all
Yeah.
skill sets and all disciplines. We need plumbers and electricians and engineers
Yeah.
and analysts and everyone that, if you say attractions or entertainment, I think to your point, most people think of just the on stage in the spotlight type of role and type of career path. And yes, of course, that's a huge part of it. And there is so much more with it too. To tag onto that question just a little bit, you also said you're passionate about the power of live experiences, and of course, obviously that has been the overarching theme of the conversation here. But I'm curious for you personally if you have any favorites, and they could be RWS Productions or any others. But as far as things that you gravitate to that exemplify your passion for the power of live experiences.
There is so many, probably too many to list, but here's what I will tell you because this actually goes across everything. Is my favorite actually is getting out to job sites, to venues and seeing it happen, particularly on opening day when it's a new product that you're putting out there that the guest hasn't seen before. But the most powerful thing for me is getting to see the look on their face when they're having that experience. And it doesn't need to be the multi-million dollar stage show. Like that's the thing that I actually think is so impactful. What I always go back to, and I'll use this as an example, costume character meet and greets, right? This is something that exists at every theme park in the world, probably. And there is so much power in that as a live experience because the way that I always think about it is that not every kid is going to go see a Broadway show. Not every kid is going to have that experience of, the big spectacle. But particularly in our world where they're going on holiday, right? And they're on vacation somewhere, they're going to a theme park, they're out experiencing one of these destinations. That might be their first experience into entertainment. And costume characters to me is not something that people think of as necessarily like a go-to, entertainment activation, but it's really at the heart of those parks, right? The characters are the heartbeat or the pulse of the park. So that's a moment where that child is getting to go meet their hero or their icon, or that's like them getting to meet a celebrity. And I think that cannot be underestimated because there's so many times where I just stand in the back of the crowd of a new, particularly new costume character meet and greets are always a great way to see this. And you see that smile on their face. You see the parents taking the photos. You see everything that is going on in that moment. And that is such a genuine connection and it's so powerful. And that is to me like one of the greatest examples of live experience in action because it's also not what you would traditionally think as, a big spectacle moment. It doesn't need to be that. It can be something big or it can be something small.
And even those small, quote unquote, small interactions can have an amazingly huge impact on people, just as you were saying. So I love that analogy as well. Well, Jake, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to learn more about you or learn more about RWS, where would you send them?
I would send them to our Instagram. So Instagram is definitely a place that you want to check us out for RWS Global Official. And then I'm also happy to connect with individuals around the industry as well. You can find me on my LinkedIn. That'll be accessible to everybody as well. Happy to connect with anybody there. And yeah, thank you guys so much for having me and hope to see you again soon.
Jake, this has been just fantastic. Really appreciate just your time today. I have two kids, 5 and 2 years old, and at the time of this recording, we have a trip to Disneyland coming up. It will have happened by the time of the release, and I'm looking forward to the rides. I'm looking forward to the shows. I'm looking forward to the fireworks. But the thing that I am looking forward to most, and now even more so, is the character meet and greets and them being
Yeah.
able to meet their heroes and all that. So that just got me even more excited for for my upcoming trip. But in the meantime, once again, this has just been just a wonderful conversation and really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. And for everyone out there who is watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.